Jesus was placed before the Roman governor Pilate, who questioned him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "If you say so." But when the accusations rained down hot and heavy from the high priests and religious leaders, he said nothing. Pilate asked him, "Do you hear the long list of accusations? Aren't you going to say something?" Jesus kept silence, not a word from his mouth. The governor was impressed, really impressed. It was an old custom during the feast for the governor to pardon a single prisoner named by the crowd. At the time, they had the infamous Barabbas in prison. With the crowd before him, Pilate said, "Which prisoner do you want me to pardon? Barabbas or Jesus, the so-called Christ?" He knew it was through sheer spite that they had turned Jesus over to him. While court was still in session, Pilate's wife sent him a message. "Don't get mixed up in judging this noble man. I've just been through a long and troubled night because of a dream about him." Meanwhile, the high priests and religious leaders had talked the crowd into asking for the pardon of Barabbas and the execution of Jesus. The governor asked, "Which of the two do you want me to pardon?" They said, "Barabbas." "Then what do I do with Jesus, the so-called Christ?" They all shouted, "Nail him to a cross." He objected, "But for what crime?" When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere and that a riot was imminent, he took a basin of water and washed his hands in full sight of the crowd, saying, "I'm washing my hands of responsibility for this man's death. From now on, it's in your hands, your judge and jury." The crowd answered, "We'll take the blame, we and our children after us." Then he pardoned Barabbas, but he had Jesus whipped and then handed over for crucifixion.
Maybe it was Pilate who we can blame. He had the final authority to crucify Jesus or not. It was his decision. Maybe he was the one responsible for Jesus' death. Pilate's overriding aim in Palestine was just simply to maintain law and order. And he did what was necessary to keep the troublesome Jews firmly under control. He would be ruthless in suppressing any riot or threat of one. So the Jewish leaders brought Jesus to him, accusing Jesus of inciting rebellion. But as Pilate did his investigation, he could find nothing wrong with Jesus. Jesus was innocent of those charges. And he even said that this man has done nothing to deserve death. Isn't it funny that even Pilate's wife told him, "Hey, don't have anything to do with this man"? Pilate should have listened to his wife. But Pilate was trying to balance letting an innocent man go and pleasing the Jewish people. See, he feared that if he angered the Jewish leadership, they would work to get him removed from his position. And you can see that he even tried avoiding a decision by sending him to Herod because Jesus was a Galilean. He tried to get the crowd to pick Jesus as a prisoner who was released during the Passover celebration. Instead, the crowd chose Barabbas. Pilate even tried a half measure and thought, well, maybe if I have him beaten, that will satisfy the crowd. Finally, he tried to protest Jesus' innocence and said that he was innocent of this man's blood and washed his hands before the crowd. You see, he was fearful of doing the right thing. And it's easy to condemn Pilate and overlook our equally devious behavior. See, we're so often anxious to avoid pain of a wholehearted commitment to Christ, so we too search for convenient ways to avoid it. We either leave the decision to someone else or opt to a half-hearted compromise or seek to honor Jesus for all the wrong reasons. Or even sometimes we make a public affirmation of loyalty while at the same time denying him in our own hearts. What is our greatest fear? in following Jesus wholeheartedly. You see, Pilate killed Jesus out of fear. Was he the one ultimately responsible for Jesus' death? His fear certainly played a major role in Jesus' fate. But again, Pilate wasn't ultimately responsible. If not him, then who?